For an undercover operation infiltrating the mafia, which stretched from the planned 6 months to a whopping 6 years, FBI agent Joseph Pistone received a service award from the government for $500. In return, the mafia promised $500,000 to anyone who would bring them the head of this agent. In this video, I will tell you how a former teacher managed to infiltrate the ranks of the mafia and how the real story of Joe Pistone differed from the movie Donnie Brasco. Pistone had tried many professions, from truck driver to teacher in a middle school. However, since childhood, Pistone dreamed of being an FBI agent, so he didn't take any of these professions seriously. Thanks to his friend, at the age of 27, Pistone got a chance to join the Naval Intelligence Department. This department regularly collaborated with FBI agents, so for Pistone, it was a chance to get closer to his dream. Pistone passed all the necessary exams and became a Naval Intelligence agent. For 3 years, Pistone worked on cases involving drugs, thefts, and espionage. He worked diligently, and his work in naval intelligence fully satisfied the FBI's requirements. Therefore, on July 7, 1969, at the age of 30, Pistone was sworn in as a special agent of the FBI. As is usually the case, Joseph was initially loaded with paperwork on uninteresting cases. However, soon Pistone had the opportunity to prove himself when he began recruiting informants. He showed a real talent for obtaining reliable sources of information from the underworld. Some of his first informants were prostitutes. The Bureau swiftly recognized Pistone's street-smart instincts and deductive abilities. In 1974, 2 years before the events depicted in the movie, Pistone carried out his first successful infiltration mission. At that time, in the city of Tampa, there were bold thefts of bulldozers, trucks, and cars. The FBI saw an opportunity to infiltrate the auto theft gang with an undercover agent. Pistone was deemed the ideal candidate. His experience as a truck driver played a significant role in the selection of Joseph for this assignment. Pistone managed to successfully infiltrate the gang and operate undercover for a year and a half. During this time, he, along with the criminals, engaged in car thefts. In February 1976, as a result of a successful operation, the FBI and the Florida Highway Patrol arrested 30 members of the auto theft gang. This extensive network of car thieves remains one of the most significant ever uncovered. It was after this operation that Joseph Pistone was awarded his first commendation and became a true legend within FBI circles. Therefore, the Bureau approached Pistone to participate in a more substantial undercover operation, which is depicted in the film Donnie Brasco. The mission involved infiltrating one of New York's Italian crime families. The city's criminal underworld was dominated by 5 families: Bonanno, Gambino, Genovese, Colombo, and Lucchese. You might wonder why Pistone was recruited for another operation immediately after the exposure of a car theft gang. The reason lies in the fact that the Florida car theft gang had no connections to the Italian mafia in New York, hence posing no threat to Pistone's cover. Additionally, Pistone had Italian roots, making him an ideal candidate for this mission. Several months were dedicated to meticulous planning and detailed preparation of every aspect of the operation. For instance, Pistone even completely revamped his way of communication to fully immerse himself in the role, which was far from the manner of a former teacher. In the movie, this is referenced in the opening dialogue where Pistone uses the word fugazi when explaining that the ring is a fake.
What, it's a fake? Yeah, I know what a fugazi is.
Crafting a convincing legend for Pistone was of utmost importance due to the depth of his infiltration into the criminal structure. Furthermore, as an undercover agent, he was prohibited from participating in acts of violence. Therefore, his cover story couldn't be associated with professions like a hitman or extortionist, but it had to be a trade that required specialized skills and was in demand within criminal circles. The choice fell upon a jeweler. In underworld jargon, a thief specializing in stealing precious gems and metals. To acquire the skills necessary for a top-notch specialist in precious stones and jewelry, Pistone underwent specialized training. Additionally, he spent countless hours in a jewelry workshop, engaging with a knowledgeable diamond expert. The level of secrecy was so high that only a handful of individuals within the FBI were privy to what was unfolding. Joseph Pistone's name was scrubbed from all documents. This precaution was taken in case mafia spies infiltrated the bureau or if someone poked their nose where it didn't belong. Thus, in September 1976, Joseph Pistone bid farewell to the FBI office and transformed into the jewel thief, Donnie Brasco. Donnie began frequenting public establishments popular among gangsters, aiming to assimilate into their world and establish connections. He managed to strike up a friendship with a bartender at one of the restaurants who had close ties to the mobsters. After some time, this new acquaintance invited Donnie to a late-night dice game attended by numerous gangsters. In the film, it's quite peculiar to see the moment where Al Pacino's character Lefty, who recently knew nothing about Donnie Brasco, suddenly vouches for him before the mafia. In reality, Donnie's journey to earn the trust of the mafia underwent extensive stages. His initial mentor, Tony Mira from the Bonanno family, played a pivotal role, although not depicted in the film. In reality, it took about a year from the start of the infiltration for Donnie to establish such close collaboration with Lefty. It's hard to understand why Lefty suddenly vouched for Donnie Brasco in the film after he merely roughed up a debtor. If becoming a connected guy were as easy as depicted in the film, the Italian mafia wouldn't have survived for more than a couple of years. In reality, to maintain his cover as a jewel thief, Pistone needed real precious stones. In such cases, the Bureau supplied the undercover agent with confiscated diamonds. Donnie sold his first batch of diamonds through the same bartender. Donnie approached him with a package, claiming to have suitable goods for sale. The bartender simply took the package without even checking its contents. For the next 2 weeks, neither of them mentioned it. Then one day, the bartender casually informed Donnie about an envelope intended for him. There was cash inside. Thus, Joseph Pistone executed his first deal selling precious stones, and Donnie Brasco earned himself a reputation and gained notoriety in criminal circles under the nickname Don the Jeweler. Shortly after, Donnie met a certain Gilly, who was also not depicted in the film. Gilly was connected with the Colombo family, meaning he had dealings with the mafia but was not a made guy. Gilly owned a bar in Brooklyn used for money laundering. He also led a gang involved in robbing stores, trucks, warehouses, and homes. Donnie was accepted into this group because he had already proven himself. However, some members of the gang regarded him with suspicion as a newcomer. Then, an incident occurred not depicted in the film, but according to Pistone, it was the most terrifying moment of his 6 years undercover. Some associates named Patsy and Frankie, tied to the Colombo family, were released from prison. They planned a robbery to hit a factory practically in broad daylight. Gilly sought Donnie's opinion about this robbery. Donnie deemed it a bad, risky endeavor destined for failure. Sometime later, Gilly informed him that Patsy and Frankie wanted to talk with Donnie. Everyone gathered around a table. Patsy promptly pulled out a gun, placed it on the table, and addressed Donnie, saying, "If you can't convince me that you're as good a thief as Gilly says you are, then you'll leave here rolled up in a carpet." Donnie managed to hold his ground, and after 5 hours of tense discussion, Gilly intervened, ending the confrontation between Donnie and the criminals. Although the tension was diffused, Donnie understood that he couldn't let it go easily. Patsy had said too many unpleasant things about Donnie, and if he backed down, his image could be ruined, jeopardizing the entire undercover operation. According to the rules of the mafia, Donnie couldn't harm Patsy because he was a made guy. But Frankie, Patsy's associate, wasn't. So, immediately after everyone rose from the table, Donnie knocked him out with a punch to the jaw. In doing so, Donnie Brasco earned himself enemies within the gang, but on the other hand, he knew that his new friends respected power, and he felt that it had been necessary. Later, Donnie asked Gilly to transfer him to the turf of another family. Gilly was acquainted with Tony Mira, so he put Donnie under his wing. Tony Mira, not depicted in the film, operated in Little Italy. Recently released from prison, he was slightly unhinged, constantly carrying a large knife and often threatening those around him for no reason. Many gangsters considered him mentally unstable and avoided him. However, despite his flaws, Mira brought substantial income to the Bonanno family. There was another problem with Tony Mira. He didn't want to vouch for Donnie. According to Mafia rules, when you introduce a new member to the family, you are obliged to vouch for him. However, soon after, Mira was imprisoned again. Following this, Donnie grew close to Lefty. From this point on, the events of the film begin to unfold. In the movie, Lefty frequently laments his stagnant position on the criminal career ladder despite his commendable work, eliciting empathy from viewers who witness his undervalued status among comrades in this perilous business.
30 years I'm earning. Any work to be done, call Lefty.
However, reality paints a different picture, as Lefty's disorganization and chronic gambling issues hindered his rise within the ranks. Despite his loyalty to the family, these personal shortcomings prevented him from earning greater respect. Just as in the film, Lefty spent a long time testing Donnie Brasco. For example, he would dismantle the dashboard of Donnie's car and search for recording devices. In parallel with Donnie Brasco's undercover work, the FBI was developing an operation in Milwaukee. The Bureau's main objective was to connect two mafia families. Milwaukee was under the control of the Chicago Mafia, so the FBI asked Donnie to encourage the Bonanno family to engage in business with Chicago. Donnie agreed and laid the groundwork by introducing Lefty to an undercover FBI agent in Milwaukee. The pretext was a business involving vending machines. Both sides agreed to start a joint venture, but first they needed to visit the bosses in Chicago and obtain their consent to operate on their turf. All that was required was to deceive the Chicago bosses by claiming that the undercover agent in Milwaukee was a long-standing associate of the Bonanno family. Donnie was able to persuade Lefty, who took the leap. The negotiations were successful, and Chicago gave their approval. How did Donnie Brasco convince Lefty to vouch for an FBI agent from Milwaukee that Lefty didn't even know? The point is that if the Chicago syndicate had realized that Lefty, who represented the Bonanno family, had only known the agent for a couple of days, the Bonanno family would have been removed from the scheme. The Chicago syndicate would have just gotten a cut of the vending machines because this business would have operated on their territory. So, Lefty convinced the Chicago syndicate that the agent was his man. He had been receiving a cut from him, but as a sign of respect, he was willing to share that cut with the Chicago syndicate. Everyone got what they wanted. The Bonanno family secured a new source of income in Milwaukee. The Chicago Mafia received a percentage of the profits, and thanks to Joe Pistone, the Bureau, for the first time in history, infiltrated two Italian-American criminal groups by uniting undercover operations. This operation wasn't depicted in the film, but some of its details influenced the Florida episode, which I'll discuss shortly. What helped Pistone work so successfully undercover? Pistone spoke about it like this: "It all comes down to personality. You never change who you are when working undercover, you always remain who you are." Unlike his cinematic counterpart, the real Joseph Pistone never lost sight of his identity or the mission's objectives. The real Joseph Pistone possessed incredible emotional strength, a sense of duty, and a moral compass. This allowed him not to become emotionally attached to the gangsters. Pistone didn't start smoking or abuse alcohol, unlike everyone around him. Joseph saw his family approximately once every 6 months for a day or two if he was lucky. His wife, Maggie, despite the challenges of raising 3 daughters practically single-handedly, understood the nature of her husband's work. In reality, Maggie never initiated any conflicts with Joseph and certainly never entertained the thought of divorce. In turn, Joseph was faithful to her and didn't get involved in extramarital affairs, or at least that's what he claims. It would never have occurred to the real Joe Pistone to talk to his family on the phone in front of his gangster friends, as he repeatedly does in the movie. I think it's unnecessary to explain that such a trivial mistake in the real world would easily lead to exposure and years of undercover work going down the drain, because it's easy to check who you called. Only once, during the entire operation, did Joe Pistone seriously consider getting out of the game. This happened when his wife was seriously injured in an accident. It was the 3rd year of the operation. Pistone had deeply infiltrated, and he decided not to abandon the mission halfway. Besides, the development of the operation required the titanic efforts of dozens of people. Over time, the FBI once again tried to connect the New York Mafia with another family. This time, the choice fell on the Trafficante family. In the movie, these events, albeit with some discrepancies, are depicted in the Florida scene. The bait for Lefty this time was the King's Court Club in Tampa, owned by an undercover FBI agent. In the film, we see a rundown establishment, so it's unclear why any place in such a state would pique the Mafia's interest. In reality, the Mafia was drawn to this place because King's Court was a luxurious club complete with tennis courts. The FBI agent from Florida is portrayed as a bit of a fool in the movie. He's always late for important meetings and refers to Donnie Brasco as Joe Pistone in a public place.
Don't call me Joe, then I'll cut your fucking throat. You understand me, you piece of shit?
However, in reality, this agent was a seasoned professional and did not do such stupid things. The operation itself was also conducted much more skillfully. In the movie, Donnie suddenly proposes to the gang members to head to Miami without any apparent reason. If the real Agent Joe Pistone had acted as clumsily as his on-screen counterpart, he would likely have been killed during the infiltration and acquaintance phase with the bartender. In reality, the agent from Miami and Donnie Brasco planned a meeting at a bar, which Lefty was supposed to perceive as a chance encounter. Donnie's supposed longtime friend coincidentally met him at the bar, and during their conversation, the agent was to mention the club. Additionally, in reality, there were no intrigues between Lefty and his captain, Sonny Black. Donnie and Lefty returned to New York without concealing anything and informed Sonny about the opportunity that had arisen to expand into Tampa. The same process had to be followed as with the meeting with the Chicago Mafia, where it was necessary to vouch for the FBI agent. The only difference was that Lefty was not allowed to participate in the negotiations this time. Sonny decided to bring only Donnie to the meeting with the boss of the Trafficante family, as he already fully trusted Donnie. In contrast to what is shown in the film, Lefty initially knew that he would not take part in the negotiations. Therefore, there was no poignant moment when Lefty tosses the envelope with a card for his friend Donnie into the water. The meeting with Trafficante went smoothly and Sonny Black received approval to conduct business. By the way, in reality, negotiations didn't take place aboard a yacht. The yacht came into play when Sonny Black's guys decided to go fishing after successfully completing the deal in Florida. Seizing the moment, the FBI had a suitable vessel ready and rigged it with bugs. Donnie graciously offered his friends the use of the boat. However, a mishap occurred shortly thereafter, just as depicted in the film. This particular boat had previously been involved in an FBI operation, and details of it had leaked to the media. Consequently, a photo of the boat graced the cover of Newsweek magazine. Like in the movie, Lefty stumbled upon the article and decided to ask Donnie uncomfortable questions. However, in reality, since the real Joseph Pistone was smarter than his on-screen counterpart, this was his first slip-up. By that point, the real Lefty, although paranoid, fully trusted Donnie. Their conversation took place in a Jewish restaurant with a calmer atmosphere and without Lefty holding a loaded gun as in the movie. Donnie managed to convince Lefty that if they were still free, the FBI had another target and they were not in danger. In the film, another character, Sonny Black, was also inaccurately depicted, particularly regarding his personality and his close bond with Donnie. In reality, Sonny Black and Donnie Brasco became very close and spent a lot of time together. They even worked out with weights at Sonny's home and constantly competed in arm wrestling. According to Donnie, Sonny Black was the epitome of a true leader. He was composed and level-headed, unlike the emotional Lefty. The real Sonny Black was more akin to the calm and composed Paul Cicero from Goodfellas. Joe Pistone recalled waking up at Sonny's one morning and seeing Sonny Black, his boss, crossing the street to buy 2 coffees and a couple of buttered rolls. And then, there they were, Sonny and Joe, sitting on the couch in their underwear, sipping coffee with crispy rolls and watching cartoons on TV. Sonny had this soft and humane side to his character, whereas Lefty believed he should be a gangster 24/7. Everyone liked Sonny because it was nice to spend time with him, but at the same time he could always quickly switch from entertainment to work, and most importantly, to perform this work properly, unlike Lefty. It's clear that Pistone sought to communicate more with Sonny than Lefty, not because they shared many common interests, but because Sonny held a higher position than Lefty, making interaction with him more beneficial for the operation. Upon becoming a captain, Sonny Black began interacting directly with Donnie Brasco, bypassing Lefty. Donnie started receiving more important assignments from him. It was Sonny Black who informed Donnie that soon he would propose Donnie's candidacy for promotion to a made guy. But this promotion did not happen. Just like in the film, the local police raided Sonny's club, King's Court. Sonny and several of his guys ended up in jail, but Donnie posted bail and got them all released. For those who watched the film long ago, I'll remind you that there were 2 Sonnys. One was Sonny Black and the other, Sonny Red. Contrary to the film's portrayal, the murder of Sonny Red wasn't a retaliation for the King's Court incident. It resulted from internal conflicts within the Bonanno family. Sonny Black and Donnie weren't there in reality. Lefty and 3 other guys handled all the dirty work. By the way, the film didn't mention another fact that reflects on Lefty's poor abilities as a gangster. Sonny Red's body was hastily buried in a park, and it was discovered by children who noticed leather boots sticking out of the ground. This was another reason why Lefty wasn't promoted within the family. He not only had a gambling problem, but also couldn't properly dispose of a body. The operation entered its 6th year. Pistone hoped to continue his undercover work and await a promotion to a made guy. For him, the mere fact that an undercover agent managed to rise so high in the mafia hierarchy was a symbol of true triumph. However, the situation was complicated by the erupting vendettas within the Bonanno family. Moreover, Sonny Black assigned Donnie a contract killing, presumably as the final test before his promotion. This became the reason why the FBI decided to pull their agent out of the operation. Donnie entered the final stage of his operation and had to gather as much information as possible without compromising himself by showing excessive curiosity. In the film, Donnie Brasco's exit from the operation was dramatized to keep the audience in suspense, almost suggesting at one point that Pistone might defect to the mob. However, as I mentioned earlier, the real Pistone carried out his mission calmly and without any doubts. The idea of giving Lefty $300,000 to retire, as his, Pistone's, cinematic counterpart planned to do, would never have crossed the real Pistone's mind. In contrast to the film, where Donnie was pulled out of the operation during a tense situation, the real Pistone was a consummate professional who never compromised his cover until the very end. At the appointed time, Donnie Brasco simply vanished from the Bonanno family, seamlessly transitioning back to Joe Pistone. As depicted in the film, immediately afterward, the FBI confronted Sonny Black and showed him photos of their agent, Joseph Pistone. Sonny dismissed the photos as fake, such was his trust in Donnie Brasco. Meanwhile, Pistone was already in Washington, while his former friends in the Bonanno family believed that Donnie Brasco had been kidnapped by the FBI. In real life, a week later, the family leadership summoned Sonny Black for a meeting. Before leaving, Sonny went to a bar where he left his watch, jewelry, money, and keys on the counter. He informed the bartender that he was going for a meeting and might not return alive. Then he called his girlfriend, telling her the same and adding, "If you ever see Donnie, tell him I loved him and I'm glad it was him because he was simply better than us." No one ever saw Sonny Black alive again. In the film, it's Lefty who prepares for his final journey rather than Sonny. A year later, Sonny's decomposed body with hands amputated was found inside a hospital body bag, washed out by rainwater seeping from underground. Amputated hands was a clear message indicating his role in revealing mob bosses to the FBI agent. Tony Mira and Gilly from the Colombo family were killed for their association with Donnie Brasco. Lefty was saved from certain death by FBI agents who intercepted him on his way to his final meeting. Lefty was sentenced to 15 years in prison. In 1994, he was released due to penile, lung, and oral cancer, granting him the opportunity to die as a free man. He passed away on November 24, 1994. As a result of the operation, over 200 mafia members of various ranks were charged. Like in the film, Pistone received $500 from the FBI and an honorary medal for his service. Later, the government deemed this reward insufficient for 6 years of dedicated service, and Pistone received an additional $5,000 check from the Department of Justice. However, the mafia was even more generous. A reward of $500,000 was placed on his head, prompting Pistone and his family to enter the witness protection program promptly. Joseph Pistone remains under the program to this day, rarely giving interviews or making public appearances. The Italian-American mafia still exists, but its power is significantly diminished compared to before. It has lost its grip on labor unions and no longer holds sway over political parties in the U.S. Congress. It can confidently be said that one of the catalysts for the mafia's decline in America was the brilliantly executed undercover operation carried out by the true patriot of his country, Joseph Dominic Pistone. Thank you for watching the video to the end. I hope you had a good time. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. You'll discover plenty of other captivating videos waiting for you there.